I had a warm quilt, an insulated pad, and a decent campsite. Still barely slept. Turns out the missing pieces weren't what I expected. So I covered the most obvious sleep upgrade, an inflatable pillow, in my last video. But this one's about the upgrades most people overlook. Most hikers think if their pad is warm and their bag is rated right, they'll sleep fine. But that's not how it always works, at least not for me. I kept waking up cold or sore or wide awake at 3 a.m. even with decent gear. So I started tweaking everything else. These 5 changes made a way bigger difference than I expected, and here's what finally worked. Swapping my sleeping bag for a quilt was one of those upgrades that's not for everyone, and I kept putting it off, partly because I didn't totally trust it, and partly because of the price. I mean, my Enlightened Equipment Revelation quilt cost over $300. So yeah, not cheap. But now that I've used it on enough trips, I'd buy it again without hesitation. The big win with a quilt, especially something like the Revelation, is not only the weight loss, but also the flexibility. You get a zippered footbox that cinches shut on cold nights just like a sleeping bag, but the whole thing can also unzip and lay completely flat like a blanket, which is awesome on warmer nights. It also compresses way smaller than traditional sleeping bags and weighs a lot less for the same warmth rating. That said, quilts do have a bit of a learning curve, especially the first time you camp in colder weather. Unlike a mummy bag, quilts don't have a bottom or a full zipper enclosure, so you need to be careful about tucking the sides under you or you can definitely get drafts. What helped for me was using the pad attachment straps that come with the EE Revelation. You wrap them around your pad and clip the quilt into place, which really helps seals the edges and stop those cold spots from creeping in. It still takes a little adjusting during the night, but super helpful if you have a quilt with that feature. And I also like that quilts don't have hoods. At first I thought I'd miss that, but honestly pairing it with a buff, a beanie, or a puffy jacket with a hood works just as well and gives me more options. Plus, if you do any hammock camping, quilts work great in a hammock. Bottom line, it's definitely not a budget piece of gear and it takes a little getting used to, but once I figured it out, I slept better, stayed more comfortable, and shaved real weight off my pack. And I haven't gone back to a mummy bag since. So I used a regular width Thermarest Neo Air X-Lite sleep pad for years. It's one of those pads that just sort of ends up in your kit, especially when you're trying to shave weight. And yeah, it's warm, it's light. But there's one thing that no one tells you about until you're halfway through a 3-day trip wondering why your arms keep going numb during the night. 20 inches wide is not enough for everyone. Not if you sleep on your side, not if you're moving around at night, not if you're a human being with shoulders. I kept waking up twisted around, one arm hanging off the edge, my hips rotated, neck cranked. It was like trying to sleep on a narrow inflatable canoe. I kept telling myself it was fine because it's ultralight and I'm saving weight, but I wasn't saving energy. I was waking up more tired than when I went to sleep. Switching to the 25-inch wide model was one of the best gear upgrades I've made. It's only a few extra ounces, but it completely changed how I sleep. No more balancing act. I can stretch out, roll over without falling off the pad, and actually relax at night. And for tall folks or anyone who just hates the feeling of their toes sliding off the end of the pad, the large size adds both extra width and length too. At 77 inches long, it covers everything from head to heels, even if you point your toes or stretch out on your back, and that's the model I use now. I still use the Neo Air X-Lite because it's efficient, but the wide version, that's what really made it comfortable. That extra width and length turned it from something I tolerated into something I now actually sleep on, and that's what I was really looking for in a pad. And here's the thing about inflatable pads. Yes, they're warm on paper, but in real world conditions, they can be a bit fragile and noisy. and weirdly prone to sliding around like a greased up banana peel. I didn't realize how much of my sleep quality was being stolen by that tiny bit of movement, that little rustle every time I shifted, or that cold spot under my hips when the temperatures dropped below 40. Adding a foam pad underneath my inflatable pad, just a thin one, solved way more problems than I expected. Many people use the full-length Gossamer gear pad for this purpose, and I'll sometimes bring a trimmed down Thermarest Z-Lite. And on shorter trips, I'll just slide my sit pad under my hips to keep my hips warm under my pad. That one move boosts insulation by adding R value where you need it most, especially if your inflatable pad is starting to age or not holding heat as well as it used to. It also serves to anchor your setup. Your inflatable pad won't slide around as much on your tent floor. It absorbs some of the crinkle sound too, which isn't a huge deal until you wake yourself up every time you roll over. And it has added puncture protection, especially if you're cowboy camping or dealing with rocky ground. Doubling up your insulation at night is not a flashy upgrade. It won't impress anybody, but it works and it's a solid way to improve your sleep quality. So I used to think a buff was just a sun thing, something to keep the back of your neck from burning or maybe use as a bug shield when the gnats got bad. At first I didn't give it much thought beyond that, but one night I climbed into my quilt, cold wind cutting under the edge, and just on instinct I pulled the buff up over my ears and nose. Instant warmth all around my face. And now it's become a core part of my sleep system. I'll wear it like a hood, tucked around my face, and sometimes I'll even pull it over my eyes if the moon's super bright. It traps just enough heat to stop those face-freezing wake-ups, especially if the wind shifts in the middle of the night. Now, it's not a full hood, obviously, but it closes the gap where your quilt or bag sometimes doesn't. And if you're running a quilt, this matters even more. You don't have a built-in hood and your head and neck are exposed by default. That little draft you didn't think about at sunset, it'll have you fully awake at 2 a.m. The buff can stop that before it starts. It's also great when you're cowboy camping. Keeps dust off your face, gives you a little bit of security from bugs, and if nothing else, just makes you feel less exposed when you're sleeping out under the open sky. I've used my buff to wipe off condensation, soften a pillow, and even use it as a beanie. It's a simple piece of gear, but it's one of those things that keeps solving problems you didn't know you had. If you're not already carrying one, it's worth adding. All right, this is one that I resisted the longest. I mean, earplugs, a sleep mask, I thought those were for like long flights or hotel rooms, not the backcountry. But after too many nights lying awake while the wind flapped my rainfly like a drum solo, or some early bird chirped aggressively at 4:30 a.m., I finally gave in and started bringing them. And you know what? They work, like really work. Foam earplugs cut out that ambient noise that your brain pretends it's ignoring, but actually isn't. That nearby stream that sounded pleasant at first, but now is a constant roar you can't stop thinking about, gone. Rain drips, gone. Rustling leaves, still there, but way less jarring. It's not total silence, but it's enough to let your nervous system chill out and relax for the night. The sleep mask surprised me even more. I didn't realize how often I was waking up just from the change in light, especially with moonlight shining through if I have my rain fly off, or when the sun comes up before 5 a.m. in the summer. With a soft mask over my eyes, it keeps the lights out, plain and simple. And when you're exhausted, that's sometimes all you need. So I keep a mask and earplugs in my ditty bag so they're always in the same place. I used to think that bringing this stuff was overkill, but after enough nights of waking up to moonlight, wind, or rustling leaves, I got over it. Now I just block it all out and actually get some sleep. I used to think that bad sleep was just part of backpacking. You deal with it, hike tired, crash harder the next night. But dialing in the small stuff, layers, pad quality, noise, drafts, finally turned my nights from frustrating to actually restful. And if you're still in the phase of figuring out what actually matters on the trail, I put together a list of the most common beginner mistakes I've seen and made myself. That video is right here if you want to keep going. So hope something in here helps you sleep better on your next trip. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you out there.